Rcmdr. Now let's open it up. So you open up R just like you would any other program, nothing special. I put a shortcut on my desktop, boom, double click. This is what I get. Now there's no, you're trying to think, oh, where is it here? And rather than hunt for it, let's shortcut a little bit here. So I want to open up Rcmdr. So I go library. So I'm going to type in library, and then open bracket, and then Rcmdr for Rcmdr. This is a similar kind of process as we did when we installed Rcmdr. We went install.packages, and we had Rcmdr or Rcmdr in brackets, and it installed it. And then the very first time, sometimes when you go to run this, it'll say, hey, these dependencies are still necessary. You click yes, add those in there. That's fairly standard. It's not a very big surprise with these open source software. I mean, it is free. I mean, and so it can be a little bit more nerdy than SPSS or something like that. So we do library, and then we type in Rcmdr. Click. And wait a little while, it's loading it up. And Rcmdr now is loaded onto my machine. A lot of statistical packages in the pull down, and we'll talk about these throughout the term. We'll mostly be interested in things related to regression and some of the tools that we have regarding regression that are available in R but are not available in Excel. Next step that we're gonna want to kind of have a little bit of an understanding for is, how do I get a data set in here? I mean, it's all pretty and nice. R can do, and R through Rcmdr can do all sorts of cool and wonderful things. How do I get the data in there? Okay, so data, that's an intuitive tab. So we go to data, and we could load data set, but often we'll be importing data. Importing it just means it's in a different type of data, different file type. And for us, and for most people, I think Excel is a very common data type in which data is found. Working with a lot of Stats Canada data, SPSS is also a very popular native data set. Okay, so I click Excel file, and I give this a name. This would be a name related to us. So I'll call it experiment. It doesn't have to be the actual data set name. That's not what we're doing here. It's just that we have the ability to have several data sets open, several workspaces open within R. We just want to keep track of who's who in the zoo here. Okay, so I click OK. Now, a couple of things before I click OK is, note variable names are in the first row of the spreadsheet. You're going to want to verify that that is indeed the case. So for instance, if I'm thinking of bringing in grocery expenditures, which is in an Excel format, looking at it here, I see that the variable names are at the very top of each particular column. Very important. Data packages, most data statistics data packages look for that variable name at the top of the column, each column representing its own variable. I want to make sure that is indeed the case. Excel lets you do all sorts of things and mix and match, and that's fine, but when you're talking about really, really meaty or big data sets, that becomes very unwieldy. So here, one column, one variable type. Variable name is the very first item in that column. That makes our lives 100 times easier. If that's not the case, then you're going to want to add those variable types within Excel. Within Excel. It's much, much easier to edit this data in Excel than to do it in R. Okay, so it looks like it's all good to go. And so we will import our data. So we'll click OK. Where's the spots? There's grocery expenditures. I click open. Now, one thing you'll note here is, because there are a couple of different tabs here in my Excel spreadsheet. So I have a data tab and I have an assignment tab. R wants to know which one do you care about? Now, clearly we're looking at this and we see that the data type actually has the numbers in it, and we were interested in the data tab. So we click data, click OK. and it loads that data up. We can view the data set, and we see that, hey, there's all our data, and so on. Close that up. A couple of things before we won't get too far into the weeds with working with the data set. We'll talk about that more in class. But one of the things you always want to do whenever you take data from a let's say Excel or SPSS, and you bring it into R, you want to make sure nothing got forgotten or something weird happened. So a common practice is we'll just go to statistics and we'll click on summaries, and we'll click on the summaries of the active data sets. This calculates all the basic values, mins and maxes, and especially means. And I want to take those mins and maxes and means and compare it to the similar calculation that you would have hopefully done in Excel, just to make sure that they match up and nothing's missing, nothing get copied over in a weird way or anything like that. It's rare that weird things happen, but weird things do happen. So we want to verify that indeed didn't happen. And we can kind of see what our output looks like. Not as glitzy an output as you see in Excel, and certainly not as graphically fun, although there are ways you can make that look pretty in R. But for us, R is going to be delivering us some really hardcore statistics that we can't get in Excel. We'll use Excel to make things nice and pretty, but there are some calculations that Excel just simply doesn't do, but we are still interested in them, and we still want to be able to do them. Okay, so this is just a short little trip into the very, very basics of Rcmdr. Feel free to kind of hunt through and look at things. Some of these items should be familiar to you. You would have seen a single sample t-test in your first stats class, so that's something that should be familiar to you. Some things that we'll see in greater detail. We'll be doing linear regression, which will be the most important thing that we'll like here. But there's some, diagnostics like variance inflation factors and tests for heteroscedasticity and autocorrelation. Those are things that we're going to come to know and love later that we use, but we can't really calculate them that easily in Excel. Okay, so if you have any questions, again, feel free to shoot me out an email or ask me in class. Good luck and happy statsing.